Hello and welcome, podcast listeners. My name is Ellen Stewart, and I am the Pushy Broad from the Bronx.
She's the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York. Follow her voice, a stray dog is nice. She's the pushy broad from the Bronx, oh yeah. Don't be surprised if you wanna listen twice. Make decisions, find the right choice. Know yourself better, find your own voice. It's okay if you need help today, cause everybody needs a little push. From the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York.
Welcome to my weekly podcast, with new episodes airing every Monday. I hope to inspire you, coach you, sometimes make you laugh, and give you the push moment you need to start thinking differently about the decisions you make in your life. The topic of this podcast, episode 29, is couple trouble. What do couples fight about behind closed doors? How do they address it? Some studies have shown that sex and money are the two leading causes for divorce. But sometimes studies don't always tell the whole story. As a life coach, when I work with couples in handling their relationship, sometimes neither sex nor money comes up at all. I understand that relationships are complex, and no two marriages are the same. But there are some common things that I see as a life coach over and over again. So maybe this applies to you, and maybe you can find ways to overcome these communication troubles.
Everybody needs a little push. Everybody needs a little push. Everybody needs a little push. Everybody needs a little push.
Here's an email from one of my listeners.
Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, my wife seems so emotional about every little thing. It's difficult for her to make a decision without her emotions getting in the way. I consider myself much more practical and logical. How do we get on the same page? Howard from Fairfield, Connecticut.
Thanks so much for your email, Howard. Sometimes this happens a lot with couples. One person thinks that one is too sensitive, and the other one thinks that his partner's not sensitive enough. Try to understand that the only way that sometimes you can get through to somebody is to have empathy for another person's feelings. One person will say something or do something that is not intended to hurt someone, and yet whatever said or done is interpreted as thoughtless or hurtful. When the other person reacts in anger, the person who did it is immediately confronted and confounded and bewildered and launches into defensive explanation, which only digs them into a deeper hole. Whether or not you feel like you did anything wrong, it's important to express empathy for your partner's bruised feelings. If you approach your wife with her sensitivities, you are never going to get anywhere. So just take a deep breath and realize that she wears her heart on her sleeve. Explain calmly and peacefully that you just want to analyze something by what I call putting it up on the whiteboard, trying to detach your emotions from it. See if you can make a simple decision without your feelings getting in the way. I understand that it's very difficult for someone who wears their heart on their sleeve all the time. But I need you as a husband to be patient. Understand that she thinks with her heart, and you may be thinking with your head. So, try to compromise. Have a discussion about what it would mean for both of you to start thinking with your instinct, with your guts, which is devoid of emotion and feeling instinctively. Take a deep breath, relax, be patient. She will start to learn that feelings aren't facts. Here's another letter from one of my listeners. Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, It's been ages since my partner and I had a true date night. We're always juggling kids and never have any time together. When we do have time alone, we're both exhausted and many times non-responsive to each other. What can I do to revitalize our partnership? Laura from Greensboro. Another major problem that couples have is that everybody's too busy focusing on everything else but the relationship, like kids or career. Couples really need time to develop their relationship together, and sometimes you actually have to schedule that time, just like you schedule time to be with the kids, and the kids have scheduled activities, and you go to work, or your husband goes to work, and you have specific scheduled times. You actually have to plan it. And the more you do that, the more it will open up your lives. After the initial intense experience of being in love, some people don't realize that marriage needs nurturing. It's not going to happen all by itself. If you let it keep running on autopilot and start bickering about it, you're going to get bored with each other, and then the intimacy disappears. Or, worse than that, somebody has an affair. It's very important for you to take time for your marriage, just like you take time for everything else. Think of it as an investment in your health, in your well-being, in your marriage. There is nothing wrong with scheduling time together. You will both feel better about it. And scheduling time together does not only mean sitting on the couch, vegging out, watching TV with a bowl of popcorn between you. That date night has to be something special. Maybe your husband can pick one week and you can pick another week, but make sure that you do it with enthusiasm. Here's another letter from one of my listeners.
Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, I wish my wife was better at seeing our issues from my perspective. It always seems to be about how she feels and doesn't always understand how I feel. How do I explain to her my point of view? Daniel from Silver Springs.
The number one challenge that couples have is how to communicate better. And I do believe it is a challenge. Marriage does mean communication. You are living with someone, and this not only includes communication about daily activities, but this also includes how to argue with your spouse. There are so many couples that say to me, or your partner even, there are so many couples that say to me, every single time we get into a fight, one of us threatens to leave. You can't do that. You have to know how to recognize, remember, what pushes each other's buttons, and understand how intolerable that is to both of you, and really make an effort not to go there. Perhaps you can begin to talk better if you work with a therapist or a life coach. Communicating better is the kind of thing you can learn. Knowing how to do it in a more effective way is easier if it's done from the start of a relationship. I have seen a great deal of increase in folks seeing premarital counseling or therapy or coaching, which is extremely encouraging. At the beginning, both partners are willing to do exactly what they need to do to have the relationship get off to the right start. Communication skills are extremely important in a relationship. Understand and be empathetic. Your idea in communicating is to come to an agreement, not to perpetuate conflict. One must understand that avoiding arguments and conflicts is something that we always try to do. But when we are faced with such a thing with our partner, we have to understand the other person's point of view. And most importantly, we must listen so that we're not talking over each other and always trying to win. The object of a conflict is not to try to win, but to understand diplomacy and compromise. And the fact that every single argument should not fall into the category of, now let's break up because things aren't working out. One of the best techniques that therapists and coaches use to make sure that both couples are actually listening to each other and seeing each other's point of view is to actually mirror each other. One person says something and the other person says, "So what I hear you saying is," and then repeats what he thinks the other person is saying. And then the other person has the opportunity to decide whether or not your partner has gotten it right. So try that with your wife. When she says something, say to her, "I think I understand you. I think this is what you are trying to say." And then when you talk, you ask her to tell you what she thinks you have said. That technique of mirroring will help you both see each other's point of view and understand each other. What if you can solve the biggest problems in your life if you only knew how to think about them differently? Do you have trouble making decisions because you feel torn or paralyzed or simply afraid of making the wrong choice? Do you feel that maybe you could live a happier life, but you just don't know where to begin? Do you ever wonder why you have trouble connecting in relationships because you're always in conflict? If you could change the way you think about things, then your feelings and your actions would change as well. If you had the tools to change negative thoughts to positive thoughts, how different would your life be? How would thinking differently allow you to make healthy decisions, to energize your self-esteem, recharge your relationships, truly transform your life? My breakthrough program, Think Differently, Take Command of Your Life, will do just that. Learn more about it at pushybroadfromthebronx.com. Want quick answers to things with no BS? Here's my segment, No or Yes.
When you need a quick answer, no BS. Ask the pushy broad and she'll say no or yes.
Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, my husband and I rarely fight. I would say that we are, for the most part, conflict-free. Doesn't this make for a perfect relationship? The answer to that is no. Maybe you do need to say the things you need to say. If you're always on the same page, that's great. But if you're not, and you're just trying to avoid the conflict, then there can be a problem. Make sure that you and he remain individuals, which means that you get to speak your mind, even if you don't always agree with him. So examine what you mean by conflict-free. Make sure that you are on the same page and neither one of you is hiding your feelings. Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, my partner and I never seem to have enough fun together. We try to do things, but it just never seems to work out. We're always busy with running from place to place with different schedules. Do you think there's a problem with this? Yes. When you've been with someone for so long, the definition of date night sometimes loses its meaning. After all, the two of you can sit on the couch or pound away on your laptop side by side almost every night, and that doesn't mean quality time. Couples spend too much time on business calls or doing the chores of married couples and not enough time staying connected, having fun together. Remember what you did when you went out, when you first met? What are your interests, your passions? What fun things did you both like to do when you were dating? It takes work to keep a marriage. One of my recent podcasts says love is exercise. In order for a relationship to be successful and continue to be successful, it's really necessary to continue to foster the romantic and emotional connection between the two of you. Dates are extremely important. Do not underestimate them. Do you feel the need to cry about something that's bothering you? Well, I believe that you should do it. But I need you to take 10 minutes and then pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. Here's my segment, 10 Minutes of Tears.
When you're feeling sad and kind of blue, rather lost and not really in it, don't 10 minutes of tears is certainly for you. Please cry, but only for 10 minutes.
Dear Pushy Broad from the Bronx, I seem to be obsessed with knowing where my partner is at all times. I text him constantly so that we have an immediate connection. I don't understand why he doesn't want the same level of communication with me. I'm beginning to feel that he doesn't love me as much as I love him. What do you think? We have all heard the expression that when you love someone, you let them go. Turns out there's a lot of truth to the whole thing. Loving yourself before you love someone else idea. Rushing into a relationship before you have a good handle on who you are or who you want to be never ends well. Some people are in relationships just to help to fill the void, or to fix what they're lacking, or what they feel insecure about. A lot of people enter into relationships because there's attraction and there's chemistry. There's a lot about what they like, but there's also a lot of fantasy attached to it, that they hope the person that they're with will become who they want them to be. Couples like that really do not thrive. They don't understand how to accept the good and the bad in each other. If you're codependent, like it seems you are, it seems that you have to have someone else there in order for you to be secure and feel good about yourself. When we're codependent, we rely on the actions and feelings of others to make ourselves feel good. So, you need a coach or a therapist, because nobody should be texting somebody 1,200 times a day just to make sure that that person really loves you. That's an insecurity that stems from you and not your relationship. So, pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Understand that you have to do the work. Nobody is going to want to be with you if you are that needy, and you will lose unless you get some real help. Here's my last segment. I'm talking here.
I'm talking here.
I'm talking here. Listen. Learn. Pay attention. I'm talking here. Let's face it. Statistically speaking, you're more likely to break up than to stay together. Although this isn't news because 1 out of every 2 couples do end in divorce, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx hopes that your marriage will stay together. There are many obstacles that you have to overcome when couples have trouble. The number 1 obstacle, of course, is communication issues. As long as you understand that the mission between the two of you is to come together and not to stay apart, then you have a fighting chance. You must also learn that you must put the fun and dating back in your relationship. If you find that you have differences in relationship expectations, then you need to renegotiate together. It is always about diplomacy and conversation. If you find that you have differences in life's priorities, then see what your common ground is about. Do not give up. It is easier today to give up than it is to stay together. Maybe you have an inability of one or both of you to manage your emotions. Learn how to deal with your emotions. Pre-couples, premarital counseling, finding a therapist, or maybe having a coaching session with the Pushy Broad from the Bronx so that you can rediscover your values and find that you are on the same page. Rekindle any trust issues. It is so much better to hear from couples who are happily married or partners that are staying together because they are truly working on their relationship. Take the time. It was worth it when you walked down the aisle. It is still worth it today. Make sure that you want the same things. And sometimes all that is is the ability to stay together. This is Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, saying thanks for listening, and remember, everybody needs a little push.
From the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, New York.
The Pushy Broad from the Bronx would like to thank her production team: songwriter, composer, musician, and sound man Sam Goche, voice artist and announcer Taylor Goche. Oh, that's me! And thanks to collaborative writer and assistant production manager Richard Torres, virtual assistant and social media guru Kimberly Studdard. Special thanks to Laura Kravitz, production manager, and Susan Herman, collaborative writer. And a very special thanks to Love Love Studios in Brooklyn, for recording and mixing our music.
Here is disclaimer information that we are required to produce.
Professional coaches provide an ongoing partnership designed to help clients produce fulfilling results in their personal and professional lives. Coaches help people improve their performances and enhance the quality of their lives. Coaching services received from certified life coach Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, are not offered as a substitute for professional mental health care or medical care, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any mental health or medical conditions. The Pushy Broad from the Bronx is not acting as a mental health counselor or a medical professional. All comments and ideas offered by Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, are solely for the purpose of aiding her audience in achieving their goals, and hopefully keep you smiling in the process.